Shadow the new Praetorian. The Destruction of History. A rant by the Laughing Ogre. I think about the turmoil I see in the world at this point in history, and it makes me wonder, as I have many times before, has the world always been this way? Am I one of many back into the mists of antiquity that thought it was as bad as it could get? Barcelona, Spain, Nice, France, London Bridge attacks, Manchester, the rise of Antifa, all these things are something that would make any thoughtful human take notice. I think often about the forces that may be causing some or all of these things to happen. I think about the reason anyone would want Antifa and ISIS, the alt-right or KKK to run amok on what is, for the most part, a peace-loving populace. There is a time and a place for almost anything, but is this the time or place for this idea that we need to do something in the West to make sure all people of all races and sexes will have the same chance in life? The world I live in gives all people the same chance to make whatever they want of themselves. I find that the interjection of race into the problem of life, no matter how mundane, to be driving society apart. To use the idea that a group of people are downtrodden and therefore have the right, no, the duty to destroy pictures, statues, buildings, and wipe names and deeds of people from history is something we see in the worst governments that have ever imposed themselves on humanity. One will notice this ramping up with the destruction of statues and monuments all over the United States of America. Someone once said, "Those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it." And wiser words have never been spoken. When we tear down statues, when we redact our history, we're not able to see good and bad juxtaposed. It makes it harder to make a reasonable decision on what to believe. It's our duty to educate ourselves. It should be easy. But with a vicious dogma out there tearing pages out of the history book, it is easy to see how even in this day of the internet, it can be hard to see all sides. One may ask themselves, why would we want to see all sides if some of them are Nazis or communists? It is all the more important to see the points of those whose ideas are abhorrent to us. To bring bad ideas out into the light of debate and social scrutiny is to assure the destruction of these bad ideas. If we don't look into what happened in Italy in the 1930s, we may be fooled into thinking that Antifa is anti-fascist and anti-Nazi, when if one knows how the Nazis and fascists operated, one would see that Antifa is representing Nazi and fascist modus operandi. They claim to hate Hitler and take a page out of his playbook while they march around burning property and intimidating people into doing and thinking what they want. And that's the worst part. To force a thought process on people by telling them if they do not give in to the intimidation, they are bigots and full of hate. And yes, that is the pot calling the kettle black. But what do we expect from a group that claims to be against Nazis and shows it by acting as if they were SS stormtroopers and Nazi informants? To everyone that hears my voice today, I implore you, stand against this systematic destruction and removal of historic statues, plaques, markers, and memorials. I myself quelled at the thought of Lenin being removed in Seattle. And I have no love for Lenin. Who will be next? There's already talk of taking Lord Nelson from his column in Trafalgar Square. Should we remove the statues of Caesar in Rome? He was a dictator and a slave owner. No, people. We need to remember the great men that built the world we enjoy today. But we need also remember the tyrants and bad men all the more, or it will be necessary to endure a string of such tyrants for eternity.